Good morning, everyone. It is October 28th, 2018. Back around 2010, 2011, my wife was kind of nagging at me to smile more. And I told her I can't smile more. I can't. It is about the time where we stumbled across information about the police state FEMA camps from Jesse Ventura. Of course, I found it really hard to believe, like most people do. So I began to go behind these people and check what they were saying. Found out it was true. And ever since then, I've been doing that. I've been going behind people and what they say, and seeing if what they're saying is true. Now, InfoWars, Alex Jones specifically, but some of their other reporters, they like to use their own articles as their sources, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use outside sources and point to them. So this morning, I go to Dave Hodges' website, Common Sense Show. I don't think he is actually exercising common sense. However, there was an article on there, or a video, with a short paragraph regarding what the video was about. And I found what he claimed hard to believe. So I went and looked. And I do this all the time. All the documents that I talk about, the Internment Resettlement Operations Manual, Strong Cities, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, all these different documents. I've gone behind people and read them to make sure they were being honest, and for the most part they were. So this morning, oh no, not that. I go to the Common Sense Show, and he claims Russians have named their #1 nuclear target. And he asks, can you guess which target they picked? And it's painfully obvious. It would be Yellowstone. Yellowstone. By hitting Yellowstone, they can wipe out a whole bunch of military bases and missile silos. So, again, I found it hard to believe. And so I go to his source right here, which was Russia Today, and lo and behold, it's true. U.S. would be history if Russia nukes Yellowstone volcano with mega bombs. And this is going to be my only video today, because I got some research to do. Maybe I'll do a scripted video with nice visuals and all that this week. Thank you. But they say Russia must develop the capability to destroy the U.S. in a single swift blow if it wants to persuade the Americans to end the nuclear arms race and return to the negotiating table. Military expert, I'm just gonna leave it at military expert, because I won't butcher their names and make myself look like an asshole in doing so. In order to curb the aggression from the West, Moscow shouldn't compete with Washington in the number of nukes. I can probably pronounce this one. Sivkov wrote in a new article, the president of the Academy of Geopolitical Problems believes that an asymmetrical response would work much better for Russia, as it is able to produce nuclear weapons with a yield of more than 100 megatons. If areas with critically dangerous geophysical conditions in the U.S., like Yellowstone supervolcano or the San Andreas Fault, are targeted by those warheads, such an attack guarantees the destruction of the U.S. as a state and the entire transitional elite, he said. Transnational elite. The production of around 40 or 50 such mega warheads for ICBMs or extra long-range torpedoes would make sure that at least a few of them reach their target, no matter how a nuclear conflict between the U.S. and Russia develops, the expert said. Such scenario again makes a large-scale nuclear war irrational and reduces the chances of its breakout to zero, Sivkov said. The possession of such weapons by Russia is what would finally make Washington start talking to Moscow and give up on its sanctions policy toward Russia, the expert said. On Monday morning, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Russia and China that Washington intends to build up its nuclear arsenal until people come to their senses. Trump reiterated his commitment to unilaterally abandon the landmark intermediate nuclear forces in Europe. The INF Treaty saying that Russia has not adhered to the agreement, neither in form or in spirit. Moscow decried the U.S. plan, saying that an American withdrawal from the INF would make the world more dangerous. The Russian presidential press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, said that Trump's words were a de facto declaration of intent to launch an arms race, adding that Russia would act to protect its national interests in view of statements like this. In recent years, Moscow and Washington have repeatedly accused each other of violating the 1988 INF deal. While the U.S. has alleged that Russia has developed missiles prohibited by the treaty, Russia insists that the American anti-missile systems deployed in Eastern Europe can actually be used to launch intermediate-range cruise missiles. And then over here. Yes, Russia is getting ready for war in case U.S. attacks, diplomat tells the UN. A Russian diplomat has both confirmed and denied what U.S. warhawks have been calling out. Moscow is indeed preparing for war, he said, just in case the U.S. starts one. Speaking at the UN on Friday, Andrei Belousov, I think that's right, Deputy Director of Russian Foreign Ministry's Department of Non-Proliferation and Arms Control, said that Russia is indeed readying itself for war so it can defend its people against American aggression. At a recent meeting, the U.S. stated that Russia is preparing for war. Yes, Russia is preparing for war. I can confirm it. Russia's military buildup and large-scale drills, often painted in the Western media as preparations for all-out war, are a defensive necessity, he said. We are preparing to defend our homeland, our territorial integrity, our principles, our values, our people. One thing about the Russians is they actually take steps to protect their citizens. And they've built shelters. They've upgraded old shelters. They may not be able to save all of their people, but at least they're making an effort to do so, unlike our government. Our government, the only people that matter to them are the politicians and the super wealthy. The plans the U.S. has made to go into these underground cities do not or does not include you, me, our families. It only includes the politicians, their security, and the super wealthy. Their only concern is continuity of government. Now, I'm not a fan of Russia. I'm not a fan of any government. But, again, at least they take steps with their people in mind, unlike our own government. Russia doesn't seek a confrontation, he said, unlike the U.S. Why else would the United States pull out of the INF Treaty, increase their nuclear potential, adopt a new nuclear doctrine that lowers the threshold for nuclear weapons use? That's the question for us all. Russia is preparing for war while the U.S. is preparing for war. Belousov's words came after a Russian draft resolution to reinforce the INF Treaty, which bans intermediate-range nuclear weapons, was overwhelmingly rejected at the UN First Committee. Most of those who voted against were supporters of the INF Treaty. I don't understand their position, Belov said. Among those who voted down the draft were the UK, Germany, France, and of course the US. Washington's decision to scrap the Cold War-era agreement alarmed both Europe and Moscow, which warned it would make the world a more dangerous place, and vowed retaliation. Washington has accused Russia of building missiles prohibited by the INF, while Moscow argues that American missile defense complexes in Europe can easily be turned into offensive weapons. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that if the U.S. moves to deploy intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Europe, it will be the whole of Europe at risk of a retaliatory strike. Now, I mentioned many times that our allies, like Germany, France, Turkey, these countries, and probably more, but they're the main ones, will eventually turn on us, not us, but on our government. Common ground on Syria, what France, Germany, Turkey, and Russia agreed to in Istanbul. So they're making deals with Russia without America in mind. And I don't blame them at all. But it really does demonstrate the fact that our allies are beginning to pull back from us and are beginning to think for themselves. So, despite years of disagreements on Syria, the leaders of Turkey, France, Germany, and Russia worked out a common vision for the steps to reconciliation in the war-torn country when they met in Istanbul. Here's a summary of it. Turkey's President Erdogan, who hosted the talks, was joined by Russia's Vladimir Putin, France's Emmanuel Macron, and as well as Germany Chancellor Angela Merkel. I hate that bitch. Following the summit, the four leaders held a joint press conference and released a communique, I guess, highlighting what common ground they found during the four-way talks. First bullet point: only political solution for Syria. The leaders have expressed their support for an inclusive, Syrian-led and Syrian-owned political process that is facilitated by the United Nations. Second bullet point: need to start work on Constitution in Geneva. A committee tasked with drafting a new constitution for Syria should begin its work as soon as possible, preferably before the end of this year. Let me stop right there. What right do these people have to dictate to Syria what their constitution is going to say? I don't see why the UN should facilitate anything. The UN should be wiped off the map. Third bullet point: no to division of Syria. Syria must continue to exist within its pre-war borders. Any separatist movements or desires of foreign powers to occupy parts of the country are therefore firmly rejected. And of course we know Israel has coveted and stolen parts of Syria, Golan Heights specifically. I wonder how that's going to sit with the Israelis. I think the Israelis should be kicked the fuck out of Syria completely. I think they should be kicked. I think the state of Israel should be dismantled. And I know that makes me an anti-Semite. Fourth bullet point: keep Syria a ceasefire and defeat terrorists. The four countries have expressed their support for a ceasefire deal brokered earlier by Russia and Turkey. At the same time, they emphasized the importance of fighting terrorism and condemned the use of chemical weapons. And of course, Assad has been accused many times by the United States government and some of their allies of using chemical weapons, and of course they were all proven to be false flags. Fifth bullet point: boost humanitarian aid. The United Nations and other international organizations should bolster aid deliveries to the war-torn country. Swift, safe, and unhindered flow of humanitarian aid will provide much-needed relief to the sufferings of the Syrian people. Sixth bullet point: help return of refugees. And I think that would be a good thing, because these refugees do not belong in Western countries. They do not, their ideology does not make them, it makes them not compatible with the United States, Australia, UK, and so on. The four leaders stressed the importance of safe and voluntary return of refugees to Syria. To facilitate the process, appropriate housing and social care facilities must be constructed in the country. Seventh bullet point: internationally observed elections. The ultimate goal of the political settlement process is holding transparent, internationally observed elections. The statement reads: all Syrians, including those who had to flee the country, must be able to participate. Again, how would our nations and these nations like it if we were dictated to that the international community must be involved in our elections? And this is just the beginning of these countries cooperating with each other. I hate to make predictions, but I will. These countries are going to start brokering trade deals with each other using their currencies or gold. So, and as I said before, as soon as Germany starts doing what's in Germany's best interest, German companies like BMW will leave this country, their factories. And here in South Carolina, the economy is heavily dependent on Germany, or BMW rather. So, as I said before, rough times ahead. Rough times ahead. And if the United States were to initiate a war with Russia, we know their targets are Yellowstone and the San Andreas fault line. Who knows? They may not even get the chance to do so, because these things are becoming active as we speak. So, anyway, I thought I would share this with you. And if I see anything else today, I'll say something, but I don't think I will. And if you like my video, give me a thumbs up. If you think it's worth sharing, please do so. And my PayPal link is still in the description box below. Till next time, kill the state before the state kills you.